What's up, Starcraft fans? This video is brought to you by Endarthe, who is supporting my Patreon. Polls capping tier supporters or higher are guaranteed one video redemption per month. This month, he requested Wiki review of Tychus. So we have Edwin Home at the call with us today. Edwin Home, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing?
I'm supposed to say I'm tired, but why would I be tired? This is one of the few days where I actually had enough sleep. Can you believe that? I had 8 hours last evening and I had another 1 hour nap at work. At work, I used the lunch break to take a nap instead of eat. Anyway,
That's fair.
right? Who needs food when you can get sleep? Sleep is such an amazing thing. Anyway, so we're doing Tychus. So we have the intro paragraphs, multiple paragraphs this time. Very fancy. So what do you think about this first paragraph and the two succeeding paragraphs?
I think, yeah, it's all relatively correct. I do think on the end of paragraph 2, where it talks about when they fall in combat, they escape back to the bar and respawn after a short time. That makes it sound like they're similar to other hero units where it's just a timer to respawn, but that's not true. It costs money and you have to manually start the process. So you're not. I can see someone reading this. They go in, they lose Tychus. They're playing with their other outlaws, and they're like, "Where the heck is Tychus?
He's not
He's never
responding yet.
coming back unless you do something about him."
That's
So I
actually
think that's a little incorrect. But other than that, I think it's good.
That's actually a very good observation. The other thing is they escape back to the bar. I'm pretty sure I can see the body on the floor. I don't see anything escaping out of the body when the outlaws fall in combat. But other than that, yeah, I do agree that the only thing that's blatantly incorrect here is the reviving. That doesn't explicitly say that you have to buy them. We have basic information sidebar here. What do you think about these?
Well, there's my usual nitpick of role, not really actually telling you anything. Special tactics and missions platoon. But these strengths, I think, yeah, are all generally correct. Medevacs enable rapid deployment is, I guess, true, but you don't. I'm not respawning a outlaw and then teleporting them across the map with the medevac. Usually, they're more for healing than, I guess you could say, redeployment.
Probably redeployment is more
Moving, I don't
accurate.
know, things like that. Yeah. As far as the weaknesses, I mean, I think if I remember right, all of these are basically written mostly prior to prestiges, because I think basically every single one of those weaknesses is gone with P2.
Exactly.
You're not really vulnerable to burst damage anymore because you have 50% damage reduction, and you can hit
True.
as many up to 5 targets at a time because you can have an outlaw wherever you want. I do think, though, even heavy micro, I don't know. I don't think it requires that heavy micro. Use one of your 5 abilities every couple seconds, and other than that, a move, that's not really that much micro, I'll be honest.
Maybe the guy who wrote this is Zerg player. I don't know.
That's true. That's true.
The only thing that was a joke, by the way. I'm sorry, Zerg players. That was low hanging fruit. I had to take that. The only thing I would really change here is, as you said, the role. I would say if I had to come up with a rule for Tychus, it would be baby's first co-op commander. If you're introducing a player to co-op for the first time and they don't play RTS, let them play Tychus. It'll be really fun for them, and it'll be really helpful for you because Tychus is a very low skill baseline. Just send your outlaw out, whether or not you get any other support commanders or support outlaws. It'll be really helpful still. So let's move on. We have info and mastery. What do you think about these stuff?
Well, I think apparently that whoever wrote this, I mean, I'm assuming they just took this. I think this is in the tooltip when you click on Tychus in the game, but recommended for experienced players kind of goes exactly opposite of what you're saying about baby's first commander.
Exactly.
But I do agree with you more on that. I think it's definitely not. You don't need to be experienced to do well with Tychus. In fact, he doesn't really have similar mechanics to most of the rest, right? It's very, you don't have supply depots. You only use 5 units at a time. It's very mechanically simple. And
If you want,
yeah, it's not
the other 4 units are even optional. You just leave them at home and
yeah,
let them
that's
wipe.
true.
That's
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, and then the mastery sets, that's all accurate, I guess.
That's
As
all
per
simple.
usual.
Yeah, similar to the previous slide, I would say that the only thing I would change here is recommended for baby's first co-op commander. Moving on. Prestige information. What do you think about this thing?
Yeah, I like that they say the extra info on Technical Recruiter and Lone Wolf that yeah, you'll still get Tychus at the same time. You still get your first Outlaw available at the same time. And the fact that, like Lone Wolf, like, you don't necessarily think of it with Vega until you've actually done it. It's like, oh wow, Vega's dominated units are really strong with Lone Wolf. So I do appreciate that they kind of call both of those out here.
Very nice touch. Moving on. Game units. So this talks about Tychus specifically. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's generally correct. The shredder grenades are good. If you're not P2, I guess you could say he's a little fragile against some enemy comps. But again, like you can't judge too much on this because this was all like pre-prestige, really, where most of this was written. So obviously, they're not accounting for Lone Wolf in most of what they're saying. I mean, I've never really purposefully combined the implosion core with Nux, but I guess it's because you usually play
We usually play second
P2, and
prestige.
so they're not near each other anyways. But yeah, I think this is all fine.
I'm actually enlightened that I didn't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it is called KD9A Implosion Core. The guy who wrote the wiki could be pulling my leg for all I know, but I can't tell if that is what it's really called. If you ask me right now, without reading the wiki, what the Fatal Attraction upgrade is called for Tychus's grenade, I wouldn't be able to tell you. KD9A Implosion Core, sure, I know it right now. Give me 5 minutes during this recording, this very same recording. Ask me again. I forgot. What's it called again? That's how little I know of what it's called. I just know what it does. The Fatal Attraction for Tychus's grenade thing. The only other thing I would change, actually, the only thing I would change here is cross out the when. It says when Tychus has fallen. I would change this to if, because if you're good enough, you won't even lose Tychus anyway. Next up, we have basic strategies. What do you think about these?
Ready?
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean it's very true. There's basically no macro with Tychus. You build the total of what, like 6 buildings, I guess 9 with the medevac platforms, and that's it. So yeah, very little macro, no supply to worry about at all. The micromanaging, yeah, I mean you're basically just microing, especially with P2. I think that's what makes P2 so powerful at like the highest levels is the fact that you really don't have anything to do at home. So
Pretty
you can just be
much.
focusing on 2, 3, 4, 5 fronts, however many you have the APM for. With P2 is really good. So yeah, I think it's all pretty accurate.
Next up, we have mastery strategies. Only the first two sets are included so far. What do you think about them?
Yeah, I think Shredder Grenade is generally pretty good. There's some situations, I guess, where like attack speed's better, like Hardened Will or something like that, where
Yeah,
you're
you just
more
need
ticks of damage against the hybrid or whatnot if you need it, things like that. And the Shredder Grenade isn't going to be doing anything against them generally with Hardened Will. But yeah, I think in general, I like Shredder Grenade as well. The Try Outlaw Research Improvement, yeah, it's like they don't really say it outright here, but the main problem is just like you have plenty of good stuff to spend your money on with the outlaw availability in general. You don't need to have the outlaws be available earlier because if you get the outlaw earlier, then you're sacrificing some gear, which is often
true.
as important, if not more important, right? Whereas the try outlaw research improvement, it's not really that helpful. Like they actually say there, right? Like it only increases it by another 3.5%, right? Which is very little as mastery improvements go, right? Like just
Yeah,
as an example, like Zeratul attack speed for all of his units, not including Zeratul's 15% attack speed boost for every single one of his units, or what is it, like 15 or 45, whatever it is for Zeratul himself, right? Like that's big. Here, that it's 3%. It's really not very good
it's
on
marginal.
that front. I think it should have just been additive instead of what it is. So it became like
Yeah.
a 40% attack speed boost for try outlaw research improvement, something like that. But yeah, I think it's all relatively accurate.
Also agree. They generally got the recommendations to what I would agree with. The only thing is the specific wording. It says that the grenades. It sounds like in the first part, it's recommending the grenades for the fatal attraction ability. I would say still recommend the grenade ability, but more so because it's really good at destroying enemies outright rather than just pulling them together. Yeah, it's nice, but usually just want to destroy them. For the second one, that's true. My reason for not picking outlaw availability is usually you need to get a lot of money you need to bank up a lot of money to have the outlaws available anyway. So even when you have full outlaw availability mastery, usually you won't have enough money to call down the outlaws as they are ready anyway, rendering this mastery point wasted. Moving on. Next up, we have the third power set between Medevac and Odin. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think it's generally correct. There is some like map dependency or situational dependency with like mutators and whatnot of like sometimes you just want to have as many big red buttons as you can get. Or if you're running P3, obviously, you pretty much always want the Odin cooldown because then you basically always have the Odin.
Pretty much.
And that's nice. But in a lot of situations, especially with P2, where you're not getting constant Nikara and Rattlesnake healing, you like the Medevac pickup cooldown because, then you can be very aggressive, grab units out of the way. It's especially, it's nice to be able to just like, oh, I wasn't looking at Nux. I mouse over to him. He's almost dead. I can Medevac platform him out. So having those up, it's very good. So yeah, I think in general, I probably go Medevac pickup cooldown most of the time, but Odin has its uses for sure.
It's the opposite case for me. I usually play second prestige, so I just use the Odin cooldown most of the time because with the second prestige, I can have all my outlaws spread out, so I need to be wherever I need to be, and I just play better. I just don't lose my outlaws instead of having to use medevac pickups. I can just keep pushing, retreat a little bit if I'm taking damage, then push back when I'm healthy again. I only use the medevac pickup cooldown mastery if I'm not on the second prestige because I like to be mobile and I like to be everywhere there's action on the map, whether it's defending the base, clearing the objective, destroying enemy bases. I like to be where the action is, and I like having a medevac pickup cooldown when I cannot just spread out my outlaws and have one guaranteed to be available where there's action. So yeah, as you can tell, it's sort of your call here. However you want to play, allocate it accordingly. Next up, prestige strategies. First is the tactical recruiter prestige. First prestige. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think it's all generally correct. It's the problem with this prestige again is like just affording the outlaws,
The money
but you do
problem,
get slightly better abilities. The main problem is like, initial technical recruiter Tychus, yeah, he gets the shredder grenade 35% faster or whatever, but B2's Tychus shredder grenade just does way more damage. So it
right?
doesn't really help that much most of the time. And that is true throughout, right? Every outlaw you add on, well, you're adding one on in P2 as well, and that's increasing the damage of all of your outlaws' abilities by a significant amount. And you'll have the 50%, and you'll have the split up. So obviously, it's just not a. If P2 didn't exist, I don't think technical recruiter would be completely unpickable. But most of the time, it's like, well, if you can use this, you can just use P2 better as well, right? So
Yeah. I don't think it's unpickable. It's just something that you pick if you've gone tired of cleaning every map every game because second prestige tag is just so strong. But otherwise, there's nothing
it's
wrong with.
definitely fun. Yeah. I
Yeah.
just mean, if you're the it's never I don't think there's ever a situation where I'm like technical recruiter is a better choice than P2. It's certainly, there's mutations where it's like you could run it. Yeah, you'd be fine.
Maybe for we move unseen type of mutators because Tychus needs
Yeah.
a detector. So stuff like that. It's a little more niche than the lone wolf one. Speaking of, next up we have lone wolf. What do you think?
Yeah, it's generally correct. The like, if you're not very good at splitting your focus, this prestige may not offer you much. It's like, well, just Tychus on his own and just leaving everyone else in a little ball at home, you're still going to get massive amounts of work done realistically. So, really, in a lot of ways, I mean, for low focus players, this is easier than regular Tychus because you can just have one outlaw that you're using out on the map, one outlaw at your expansion, one at the main ramp, one at your allies expansion, and you almost don't even have to look home to deal with attack waves at that point. So in a lot of ways, I think this one's actually just even easier than P0 would be. I don't really. I mean, you can have Nikara at home. I don't think that's ever really worth it. You don't need it, especially with medevac platforms. I don't think it's necessary. The rest of it's fine.
Hard agree with that, except I would say that even if you have low attention span, like me, second prestige is easier, not because you use a single outlaw, but because even if you send all five outlaws in different directions, they'll generally win the fights. You don't have to look at them, they'll just win the fights. Because they're
That's
outlaws
true.
with second prestige. Low attention, no problem. Just your outlaw will just use your auto attack, then they'll win like it's no problem. That's how good a lone wolf is. In with mutators, yeah, you do need to look at them more frequently, but a regular brutal, don't need to look, they'll win. Dutiful dog walker, third prestige. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's relatively accurate. The Odin is really very, very, very strong, even without Big Red Button. However, on a lot of maps where you don't have, or where you would like to have Big Red Button, it does hurt to not have it. The main problem is that compared to P2, it doesn't do anything for the first 10 minutes of the game, which is more often than not, where your victory is decided,
Yeah.
is the first 10 minutes of the game. So by the time the Odin comes out, in a lot of situations, it's too late regardless. And that's true for P2 as well. Like if you're going to die, you probably are going to die before the Odin anyways. But yeah, I think this is all relatively accurate.
There are two specific instances where I think I need third prestige. The first one is minor evac, because it's just more firepower to throw at the enemy, and you don't need second prestige for minor evac because the enemy's infested. What are you gonna do? Scratch your armor? That's not gonna happen. The second instance is double edged because the Odin, for some reason, you've seen this, right? The Odin
Yep. Yeah,
doesn't
it doesn't take
care
the pledge.
about double edged. So that's those are the two instances I would think about using Dutiful Dog Walker. Moving on. Moving on to the gameplay descriptors. What do you think about this first one, heavy duty?
Yeah, I think it's generally correct. You have to be careful with Tychus in the early game because but it's a little inaccurate as well because it's always available at the start of the mission. It spawns at the 3 minute mark, and it's like, well, if you have like a basic build order, you never only have Tychus.
That's
You're
true.
always going to have a second outlaw. So the whole like you got to be really careful because Tychus by himself. It's like, well, you won't have Tychus by himself. Obviously, I'm completely discounting P2 here because, like I said, I think these were written without P2 in mind. But even with P0, it's like it's never going to be just Tychus. It's going to be
Yes.
Tychus and Sirius and Tychus and Nikara or whatever, right? Whichever pair you want to do. So I
Yes.
think that's a little incorrect.
If you have a
I
competent
guess
build
maybe,
order.
yeah, maybe back in these days they just didn't know that you could have an extremely simple to follow build order that would give you both outlaws. I'm like,
500
oh,
minerals at 3 minutes? How is that even
it's
possible?
insane, and 100 whole gas. It's
100
crazy.
gas.
So,
Oh my
yeah,
Donnie. That's true. I actually really agree with you. Even if you don't have second prestige, Tychus is still pretty durable. And with the second outlaw, you can switch them back and forth at the front to take turns receiving damage. Or if you're like me, you can use Sirius and neither of them take damage because he has turrets. Really good. Anyway, moving on. Next up, ready to become a devil. What do you think about this one?
yeah, I agree. The guns are usually a good option. I'd say it's basically always serious, especially if you're P2. It's pretty much always serious because he's got free detection if you need it in the early game. You don't have to worry about getting that upgrade and taking away from your other eBay upgrades. Rattlesnake, yeah, if you're going for like a P0, Rattlesnake's pretty good over Nikora because you're not taking that much damage in the early game. The revitalizers can kind of handle what you are taking, and then you actually have additional firepower as well. Fixture is undesirable. It's like, I guess, yeah, Nux is pretty good, like you said. Um, in certain situations, like P2 situations, I do like doing Vega every now and then with like
Cause it's
We Move
fun.
Unseen, things like that. And you can get her detection, and then, against certain, like if you're up against Immortals, man, Vega Immortals on P2 are just
Woo!
insane. So, that can be fun.
They're goaded.
But yeah, they're incredibly good. So there's situations like that, but yeah, it's more rare. And like I said, I don't know how many times I'm going to say this, but he wasn't thinking about prestiges when he wrote this. I don't think so.
All right, now we
I'm ready.
have the guns. Tychus. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they've kind of already done an in-depth explanation of Tychus, so this one's pretty brief, I think. But yeah, yeah, looks good.
I would say I would take a little bit of exception with the last part. Support from other outlaws mandatory past the first attack wave or two.
I think again, that's the. I'm trying to just be like, well, they weren't writing these for prestiges. I don't think at all, right? Like this was written before P2 was even a thing. So
Well,
I
mandatory is
think
a
that's
strong word.
yeah. You
Recommended.
could probably get away with it.
Recommended, I would accept. Mandatory, I'm not sure. But anyway, I guess it's just nitpicking, so I apologize. Crooked Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, good at single target damage. He's not one I make a ton on missions that don't have things like like the
Void shards,
void rifts and
trains.
void shards, trains, that kind of stuff. But he's pretty good there. He's good against obviously certain mutators like propagators. He's pretty excellent against
Excellent,
even
even.
speed propagators. He's quite good against. So that's nice. Once you get the stun, obviously before that it's a little more dicey. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's all fine. Sirius, the strong defensive option thing. I mean, Sirius is just kind of strong in general. You should deploy as many turrets as possible in each engagement. I would take slight issue with because sometimes you like on Void Launch, memorable boss, like we're gonna have here soon. Like
Oh boy.
if you throw them all out on the first attack wave, then you might not have, or if you're throwing them out too quickly, then you might not have them on the bigger attack waves that you need them for more so, right? So I think that is something to keep in mind. Like, oh, 6 zealots, let me throw out every single turret. Oh, look, here comes a new attack wave that's even bigger, and I have none of my turrets off cooldown. So other than
That's
that, I think
true.
it's pretty good.
You know what? That's probably something I should learn as well because usually I just throw it on every turret that I have. But in my defense, usually I don't bank up all 5 turrets unless it's in the later stages of a missed opportunities or a Temple of the Past. In which case, yeah, I will have enough turrets. But usually I deploy them like
You've
quick
cut out
enough.
completely again, I think. Oh, there,
Oh,
now you're back.
I apologize. Anyway,
No
yeah,
problem.
normally what I would do is just deploy every single turret as soon as I remember, and I don't really bank up more than 3 at a time unless we get to
Yeah,
the
I think
very
with
late game.
most situations, that's completely fine. But every now and then, it can be nice to save them up a little bit.
But yeah, now we get to the real reason why I go for Cirrus every single game. You were correct to point out that he does have detection, but more than that, I would say he also has tanking because as the guy who wrote the wiki pointed out, Tychus has, what does it say? Average. His health is average. So having the turrets in front of Tychus and Sirius, even when you're not using the second prestige, is amazing in the early parts of the game, where you might not have the ability to tank so much damage as Tychus, especially where you're not using the second prestige. And the final reason why I like going Sirius first, is because build order wise, I'd rather spend the 100 minerals it takes to build a gunslinger's hideout because if I go for a Victor safe house or a muscle armory in lieu of a gunslinger's hideout, I will lose the ability to upgrade Tychus's grenade until I get the the gunslinger's hideout. Normally, I build my gunslinger's hideout at 2 minutes 30 seconds, right on time for Tychus and Sears to both come out at 3 minutes, and I don't start the next outlaw building, aka the Victor safe house, until 9 minutes 30 seconds into the game. And between then, I will be able to afford 3 outlaws and at least one outlaw specific research, and that wouldn't be possible if I built 2 of these buildings at the same time. I also get double up. I also get my second engineering bay right around 6:30. So money wise, it just works for me. I like going serious because money wise, it works for me. I don't want to spend an extra 100 minerals on the second outlaw structure just to get Tychus upgrades when I have, for example, a Crooked Sam, or not Crooked Sam, a Rattlesnake, not Crooked Sam, a Rattlesnake, or a Vega, or a Nicara instead. I'd rather just go for Sirius and just have the turrets tank for Tychus and Sirius and just play better. Just play better. Next up, we have the muscles. What do you think about Blaze?
Yeah, I agree, Blaze. He's generally relegated to, like, at least for me, really, it's mainly just Dead of Night. You can do him on minor evac as well, and it's okay, but you don't have the same level of effect that you have on Dead of Night. I feel like
True.
you tend to have the infested all burn up and then more infested come, whereas Dead of Night, it like lasts a long, long time. But he's good on both. Yeah, outside of that, I don't use him much. I think the final upgrade turns him into a Terran Immortal that reduces all damage to 30.
Yeah.
It's a decent upgrade and all, but I've always felt that upgrade is kind of lackluster because not that much stuff deals more than 30 damage in one hit. Like, yeah, Liberators, I guess like siege tanks. Outside of that, it's like maybe Immortals. Yeah, Immortals would. But then Zerg, like, I don't think there's a single Zerg unit that's going to deal more than 30 damage to him regardless, right? And that's who you're going to want to use him against the most because that's where his oil barrel is the most useful, right? So I've always found that upgrade to be a little
Lacking?
lackluster.
I'll give you 3 units that deal more than 30 damage. They're called Widow Mines, Spider Mines, and Mag Mines. You just run Blaze through them. You just blaze through them. He'll absorb the hits and clear the way for your other outlaws when you need it.
That's true. But if you've got the ultimate gear there, like, I don't know, you're probably already done clearing the map by the time you have his full gear.
I'm just saying it's pretty fun to do. Also, aside
That is
from
true.
that,
That is true.
I 100% agree with what you said. He's the Dead of Night guy because it's not uncommon for your wildfire to fully clear out the northwest enemy base just because the fire spreads so much and so quickly. It just chain reactions all the way to the back of that base. It clears out everything. It's pretty hilarious. And yeah, another thing I like to do there is start a chain reaction, and then instead of using it to auto attack, I just run Blaze. I just literally run him through the infested structures, and the infested aberrations, they all start chasing me, and then they all get caught on fire, and then the buildings are on fire, and then a few seconds later they're all cleared. It's pretty amazing. I like Blaze and Dead of Night. What do you think about Rattlesnake then?
Yeah, highly versatile. I don't think is necessarily true. He's not really. He's very rarely good on P2. I think because you just want anti-air outlaws in general to be the ones that you're active with,
Yeah.
and he's not, which is true of basically all the muscle. I don't. Outside of Dead of Night, I don't get muscle very often on P2, right? Which is what you're primarily playing. I do like him in general. Not that he's versatile, but I think he is good on the
Yeah.
other ones just because the revitalizers tend to be a little more robust, I think, than Nikara's heal tends to be, especially because he's actually doing damage in the meantime.
Yes.
Other than that, yeah, I think it's all fine.
I go Rattlesnake when I have to play against COVID. That's it. That's it.
Yep. Yep.
Because the damage over time, you need to be standing in the revitalizer so that you don't just unalive yourself as Tychus. Moving on, Cannonball. What do you think?
Yeah, Cannonball I feel like is probably like tied with Vega for being like the least used merc out there.
Probably.
By a lot of people. For me, I think he is just the least used because I do like Vega sometimes
I
against like
also like
Protoss
Vega.
comps and whatnot. But Cannonball, I don't know. He's just lackluster. I think he is fun. They're all fun in their own ways, but he's a little lackluster. I think. But everything they say, yeah. I mean, the fact that he's unarmored is handy against things like Immortals and whatnot, like we've mentioned earlier with these muscle guys. So, and I
Yes.
mean, you can't discount that purchasing the critical response system will make his light bar work. That's important. So.
Yeah. That yeah, I'll probably just take your word for it. I don't play Cannonball very often, other than in regular brutal where anything works. So I don't really flesh out what he's good for because anything works in regular brutal. So I'll just take your word for it. Moving on. What do you think about Nicara?
Yeah, I generally agree. She does have really good single and I guess double once you get the upgrade target healing. I think in most cases, I just go rattlesnake if I'm going against like COVID or whatnot. That's going to be plenty. Especially, like if you're going P3, the revitalizer healing on the Odin is ridiculous. Like HP per second is
Ridiculous.
probably more than Nikara's single target heal is.
Yeah,
So that's pretty good. Yeah, I think she's okay. I think you want the fire, you want the firepower more than you want the healing.
that's true. That being
Stuff
said,
can't damage you if it's dead.
that's true.
So
That being said, the only thing I would comment on this whole Nikara section is the only time I would get Nikara is when I would also need to get Rattlesnake. Does that sound crazy?
yes,
Because
yeah,
sorry for sounding crazy, but I every time I get Nikara, it's always when I also get a Rattlesnake because it's on mutations like Double Edged
yeah,
and
yeah, double edged.
COVID. I need all the sustain I can get. Usually Tychus and Sirius can do the damage on their own. So just I just need guys to keep them alive for as long as possible. And when you have COVID, yes, the revitalizers do a good job, but sometimes you also need the sustain from the regular enemy attacks so that your outlaws can stay alive. That's why whenever I get Rattlesnake, I also get Nikara. But rare are those times because normally I can do just fine without either of them. But when I get one, usually I get both. What do you think about Nux?
Yeah, I like Nux. I think they're they're very obsessed with this Shredder Grenade Nux combo. I don't find that it's actually necessary to get damage done with Nux's ultrasonic pulse, especially once you get all his upgrades. It's a larger radius, it lasts longer, it does more damage. Like you're generally getting work done with it without needing help. So yeah, I think that I don't know why they really
There's
he must have
a
been the guy to find that. He was like the first person to ever use that, and he's like, that's his thing now. I don't know, but anyways, yeah, I think
there's a
other than that, yeah, it's pretty good.
there's a that's what she said joke somewhere there with that ultrasonic pulse. Larger radius lasts longer, does more damage.
I think you've cut out again.
Oh no. Now the worst time too, my Donnie.
Yeah, I think he's pretty good, but the cooldown thing is true. You have to be careful. He's one of those ones where, like you were saying, you can just A move everyone everywhere. I think Nux is one where that's not as true. If you A move Nux, his auto attack is not very good, so he can pretty easily get overwhelmed and killed on P2. So he's definitely one that requires more attention if you're going to use him. But he's really fun. Once you get the upgrades on P2 with him, you just an entire attack wave disappears in a millisecond. It's pretty fun.
You know, the times where I get Nux on each map make it very rare that I lose him because for Oblivion Express, for example, I have Tychus pushing the trains, Crooked Sam destroying the trains, and Cirrus destroying the bases. Nux is usually just on base duty or attack wave duty, which comes around every 3 minutes. That's more than enough time to get all your charges back. And a similar thing can be said for every single map where I either destroy the map before Nux is even out, such that the only thing left to do is cap the waves, which don't spawn quickly enough to exhaust all of Nux's ultrasonic pulse charges, or I just have, or it's just a long map where the objective is actually just to hold out against waves. It's just, or for example, maps like Dawn Vermilion, Missed Opportunities, Mal Warfare. Usually have enough guys clearing, and Nux's job is to camp spawning, or is to spawn camp waves. Void Launch, again, another one of those examples. That's why I don't really worry about losing charges of ultrasonic pulse. His fights don't come frequently enough for that to happen. For me, at least. Could be a different case. For example, you're fighting Void Rift, so that's a whole case. But for regular brutal, I don't think that's an issue. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I just, if you're wanting to actually like play actively with him and push, then you do have to be careful on that.
I guess
Yeah,
I guess if he's your first other outlaw, aside from Tychus, that can happen. But my first outlaw is usually Sirius. Nox is usually my
yes.
fourth outlaw, so he doesn't have a lot of fights. Moving on. You thought that was the last one. Ah. What do you think about Vega?
Yeah, I think that's generally true. Again, P2 makes her in certain situations way, way, way better because the dominated units benefit from that. I find that the dominated units with like P1 and whatnot don't generally tend to feel like they're doing very much because they're right next to Tychus and Sirius throwing out grenades and turrets and Nux storms and whatever else, right? Tends to
Yes.
kind of outshine the damage there. But on P2, you can definitely do some good work against the right enemy comps.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
then, like, if you're up against Zerg, I basically never make Vega against Zerg because they just don't have those high value units like Thors and Immortals and whatnot that are actually going to do much. Like, controlling a Broodlord is not what you'd want it to be with Vega. So, yeah,
You
other than that, I
know,
think it's pretty good.
you know, I still make confession. I still make Vega against Zerg, but not because she's good, but it's because I need a fifth outlaw.
Yeah.
I need. Who am I gonna get? Blaze as the final? I guess I can, but like, what's he gonna do against air? Well, I usually run second prestigious Tychus. That's why I don't make muscle outlaws. I need anti-air, and Vega just happens to fit that role, and also as detection. I don't know. Maybe she's not. Maybe Blaze is better. Maybe Rattlesnake's better. But I still like getting Vega as the fifth one because she can attack both ground and air and can mind control. And like I said, she with the second prestige, she can still handle her own sufficiently, unless it's like a whole bunch of hybrid immortals and stuff. She's gonna be fine. Anyway, as the mission continues, judgment. What do you think about this last paragraph?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, where it says something about like dumping a bunch of upgrades at once, storing a large cache of researchers to recruit an outlaw and immediately upgrade them is perfectly viable. I'm like, having just getting the outlaw immediately and then upgrading him later, like an unupgraded outlaw is better than no outlaw. I don't really understand the
Right.
reasoning there. Like, there's no reason to wait. I don't know why you'd ever do that. Beyond that, yeah, I mean, you do have to make judgment calls depending on the mission and the comp, right? Like what you want faster. Sometimes you want to get the Tychus grenade upgrade really fast. Sometimes getting like Sirius's fear upgrade really fast is good. Things like that. So there's some, or the exploding turrets. There's different situations where different things are useful for sure.
I like the bullet points here actually. Control and neutral elites such as cleaner bots, layouts, and other critters. That was amazing. Also, the missing unit or the missing abilities is pretty interesting. For example, High Templar cannot cast psionic storms. Dominated stalkers get like I've never seen these because I wouldn't target High Templar because High Templar die instantly. I'd rather target stuff like siege tanks and battle cruisers and
Yeah.
reavers and stuff rather than like squishy stuff like High Templar. So I've never seen that, but it's interesting that these guys have. That's really funny. Moving on. Get on the ship, yeah, Noob Skull. So this is about his medevac platforms. What do you think?
Yeah, I generally like to get at least one platform after I've got my initial upgrades and the second outlaw and everything, just in case. It's nice to have the healing if you need it.
It is. I
Y-
agree. 100% agree. Moving on.
And,
Make room for the big dog. What do you think?
yeah, Odin's pretty good. The big red button is fantastic. Very, very, very good against a lot of maps. Just kind of insta clear a whole area, which is good. And getting the Tychus revive is nice. A lot of times, though, like that doesn't come into play too much unless you're kind of planning for it. Run Tychus in, play as aggressively with him as possible as the Odin's starting to come off cooldown. Like, lose
Yes.
him. Like I'll do that sometimes. Lose him on purpose, just getting as much damage as possible for him right as the Odin comes off cooldown. But definitely, if you have Tychus alive, don't be like, well, I shouldn't use my Odin until Tychus is dead. Like, just use it, get your value.
Exactly.
But beyond that, yeah, I think it's good.
Exactly. The Odin, just like any other top bar, is limited by how frequently you use it. If you save your Odin until the very last fight, you basically use it once the entire game. Whereas if you keep using it whenever it becomes available, you get to use it twice, three, four times. That's much more value. Four big red buttons as opposed to one. It's not a contest. You just use it every time. Also, like I said before, Odin is great for double edged. Whenever you play that mutation, get the Odin every time you can because it's great at absorbing hits. Now we have Commander Synergies. Tychus synergy with other commanders depends largely on the outlaws player chooses in the game. Interesting. What do you think about Artanis?
Yeah, I think Artanis is fine. Guardian Shell on P2 can be pretty handy, keep you from having to redeploy an outlaw. That's nice, I suppose. Uh, Other than that, yeah, I mean, there's not much. Yeah, Shield Overcharge. It's not exactly a synergy, but it helps. I think they're solid. It's like a 5 out of 10.
Same, I would say 5 out of 10, but mostly because this synergy usually what happens is Tychus does his own thing, whereas Artanis struggles to follow. That's how this stuff usually goes. Artanis' best way to support really early is to drop Archon dudes and Soul Bombardment on the first couple of camps that Tychus sets his eyes on. And Soul Bombard, yeah, pretty good support. Later on, Tempests are really good for sniping if you're on maps like Dead of Night. Tempest can go behind and snipe buildings. They're not. Artanis is really good at defending, so he'd rather go on offense. And speaking of Tempest, also you can do that thing on Rifts to Core Hall, Void Thrashing, where you just fly around the base, right click buildings. Tychus does the rest. So that's the synergy. 5 out of 10. For mutators, I don't know. What does Artanis do that supplements Tychus on mutators? Observers. That's what he does.
Yeah,
Observers.
yeah, detection.
That's pretty much, yeah. Aside from that, for killbots, Artanis is the designated feeder. Sorry, Tychus. Artanis is the designated. Because sorry, Artanis. You're the designated feeder because your army sucks compared to Tychus. I know, it's true. For Carax, what do you think?
Karax, yeah, I mean the static defense thing can be nice, but with P2 you don't really lack meaningful options to defend, generally speaking. Karax can be good against things like Missile Command, where Tychus's turrets can be a little lackluster sometimes and really cut into your outlaw upgrades and whatnot, where Karax can just make lots of turrets, Kaderan monoliths that go right through. So there's that. Uh, they work well together as far as Black Death goes. Karax can just ignore it and can kind of help shore up the early game, which can be a little tougher sometimes for Tychus, although not much.
Yes.
Double edged as well. Like I could see situations where, like, if you're going double edged and you're going P3 to get the Odin or whatnot, Karax can kind of help carry the early game until you get the Odin, and then you can walk through everything. So I think they're probably like a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, 7 out of 10 is where I would also put them because aside from carrying the early game for stuff like COVID, Carax also has Spear of Adun. So he can also carry a lot of the rest of the game, because Tychus just
Yep.
isn't great against COVID. Also double edged, the orbital strikes and solar lances just ignore the damage backsies when you have double edged on. Also for stuff like missile command, like you said, very nice. For void rifts, yeah, this is a great combo because Karak takes care of the early game, whereas Tychus just makes sure that his outlaws walk to attack move to wherever the void rifts are, and they will delete it alongside Karak's. And similar to Artanis, Karak also has observers, which are great against We Move Unseen. For Poopagators, it's Tychus' time to shine because he has Crooked Sam. For stuff like Killboss is just a bad time for both of them because of Unity Barrier. That's it.
Yep.
That's a bad time for both of them. So not quite perfect. 7 out of 10 is right about where they should be. Vorazun, what do you think?
Warzone, yeah, I think the time stop's nice. Black Hole with the Shredder Grenade is pretty good as well. And Nux's Ultrasonic Pulse. I mean, you could also just use Tychus' Shredder Grenade upgrade. I don't know why they didn't mention that, but yeah, that's fine. The oil spill as well is good. Yeah, I think it's fine. I think it's like kind of in between. It's one of those things where a lot of the stuff that helps, it's kind of just helping you win when you're already winning. I don't think Warzone necessarily gives Tychus access to things that help him in situations where he's struggling so much. Like,
Yeah.
you're probably just killing all the units regardless of whether or not a black hole is used, right? And her detection isn't any good either, right? So she's not really shoring that up too
No,
much for Tychus. I mean, oracles are better than what Tychus has with P2 for detection, I guess, but they're still not great.
not
So
great.
yeah, things like that. I'd say they're probably like probably a 5 out of 10 as well.
Same. I also put Vorazun at 5, right about Artanis level. She is slightly better than Artanis at dealing with missile command because she has Corsairs, but for COVID, she's actually worse than Artanis, so it kind of balances out. The rest, it's right about the same. Tychus does most of the work. Vorazun just kind of fills in the gaps where they are. Black hole pretty good, but Tychus can deal with on their own without the need of a black hole usually. So it's nice, but not really necessary. Alarak, what do you think?
Alarak is pretty similar to like Borzun, I feel like, in that you do have like some missile command stuff you can do with P3 with the Void Rays. You can deal with missile command reasonably well with those, so that helps Tychus out. There's not a whole lot of synergies that Alarak really does. He's kind of just a do his own thing. I guess Empower Me is a little bit of a synergy, but that's not exactly a commander unique synergy there. That's just any commander that he's near will help him out with that. They kind of just play alongside each other without like helping out a ton. He's not going to help against things like double edge because Alarak also hates double
Oh
edge in
yeah,
general,
yeah.
those kinds of things. He does his detections like I don't know. I think Havocs are
Havocs.
maybe
Yeah,
slightly better
Havocs.
than Oracles, but they're not much better. They're a little better. I think they have slightly lower target priority, but they're also even squishier to like AoE or anything like that that gets hit on
Yes.
Tychus. So it's okay. I think he's another 5 out of 10 probably.
I would put Alarak slightly higher personally. I would have an Alarak at 6 out of 10 just because early game to mid game, having the mothership in Alarak to supplement a Tychus push, that's just close to unbeatable. When you have a giant mothership to go on offense alongside Tychus and Sirius, you can make a long way out of that. Even Alarak, for example, on minor evac, you can activate the ship as soon as Alarak's out, and not care about whether there are any other units. In fact, having Alarak and Tychus, they can activate two separate ships at the same time in minor evac. But that being said, it's true they are kind of weak to. They're both weak to double edge. They're both weak to COVID. Alarak is less capable than Vorazun versus Missile Command. Void Rifts, it's a Tychus thing. Alarak just kind of helps with the early part, but lets Tychus do his thing at the later part. So, yeah, I think it's slightly better. 6 out of 10. Moving on. Phoenix, what do you think?
Phoenix is fine. I mean, Phoenix is basically just like worse Tychus most of the time with P2. So you'll just have your two little bands of merry units. You'll have detection from the Dragoon suit, or not the Dragoon suit, the Arbiter suit pretty
Arbiter, yeah,
easily. So that helps. The Sentries like damage resistance buff stacks with P2 pretty well in theory. So there's
pretty
that.
nice.
But you have to like be following them around and microing that, and then they're in multiple places at once. So that's kind of a pain to do, but it is there. Beyond that,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I think he's probably like another 5 out of 10. Really, it's one of those things where it's like they're not particularly synergizing, but they certainly work decently well together. I think. I guess missile command, like
you
sentries,
really hate
right?
Missile Command.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing where like Tychus, his turrets are just not very good against missile command.
Yeah,
They're
if I
so
were
expensive. They really hamstring your ability to like get your outlaws powerful.
against Missile Command, I would say Tychus is better than Phoenix and Alarak and Vorazun and Artanis because he has repair.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. And you can leave like some outlaws at home to help Vega and Nux or hit scan. So there's that for like targeting the big guys at least. But yeah, it's fine. It's okay. I'd say yeah, like a 5.
I would give this another 6 because similar to Alarak, having having Kaldi just absorb all the hits for Tychus makes him all the more potent wherever he decides to push. Kaldi with Phoenix And Tychus, oh boy, that's a proper late game push right there. A late game push at minute 5, incredible. So yeah, like you said, week to the same stuff. The COVID, not great. Microtransactions, I mean, not that bad for either, but not great either. Slim pickings will make them both weaker, but not really that crippling. Environmental mutators, Tychus is a lot more resilient because Phoenix needs his shell farm somewhere. Killbots, well, Phoenix is the feeder. That's just the way it goes. For Poopagators, it's Tychus' job. So a little bit more your job, my job sort of deal on some mutators. So yeah, 6 out of 10 sounds fair. What do you think about Zeratul?
Well, Zeratul synergizes with Tychus in the way that he's one of the only commanders who can kind of keep up
Keep up.
with him when Tychus is blazing across the map. So there's that. The static defense is pretty good. Obviously, he can do well against missile command. Again, he has options against double-edged somewhat with the cannons. Black Death, he doesn't really mind much at all, which is good. Yeah, I think they're pretty good together in terms of them both just being extremely strong commanders. You know, some of like the top few commanders in the game. So I'd say probably like an 7 or an 8 out of 10.
I would lean more. They're good. They're really good together. So that's at least a 7, just because both of them can just end the game effectively at like minute 7. At minute 7, the game's basically over, and you're just playing cleanup. But in terms of actually helping each other, there's there's a lot of your turn, my turn, your wave, my wave type of situation with them. Rarely just rarely just covering each other's weaknesses, but more each of them have their own strength against this thing sort of deal. So yeah, 7 sounds about right. The thing is that is there mutators where one of them is great that can cover the other? Pupigator, no, both of them are solid. Heroes from the Storm? Yeah, but that's kind of that's true for everyone. Everyone needs to come together against Heroes from the Storm. We move and see. We move and see. There we go. Zeratul's
Yeah, yeah.
observers are
The observers for
incredible,
Zeratul are
and
ridiculously
cannons,
good.
cannons too. For polarity, Zeratul can do something against polarity by using the mode to sometimes change the polarity of stuff. So yeah, there's that. So yeah, 7 sounds about right. Let's move on. Rainer, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. Some of these Vega can be used to ensnare flying units to pull them to the ground, allowing more of Rainer's army to finish them off. I'm like, what? I guess. I guess that's true. I don't know. That doesn't seem that useful to me. The Tanner sweep also, like, no, please. I mean, I guess that's the detection he has, but like that's yeah, not good either. Revitalizer is pretty decent, but again, it's a percentage based heal, so it's not that good with Marines and whatnot. It's like, oh wow, 2 HP. That's not that much. So yeah, I think it's fine. Again, I feel like I'm putting everyone at like 5 or 6, but I'd say probably like Rainer's super good against missile command, right? So there's that. Rainer against double edged has stuff he can do.
Spider mines, I guess.
Yeah, spider mines, like his bio with revitalizers, would do well, I guess. He can kind of do well enough in the first stages of the game against double edged, right? And then Tychus could get out the Odin and then it's game over, right? So that's a game plan there.
Hmm.
Obviously, they synergize well in terms of Tychus handling a lot of the more tough mutators like Void Rifts and whatnot. He kind of just walks through. So
Rain can help a little
I guess
bit.
that's helping, synergizing Rainer. So yeah, I think it's probably another like 5.
I give it a 6 because Rainer has something that Tychus doesn't have: bunkers. For maps like Dead of Night, Tychus can try, but he'll eventually get broken. Bunkers and siege tanks allow Rainer to play Dead of Night indefinitely, and that's something Tychus can't say. So I give it a 6. Moving on. Swan, what do you think?
See, I guess, but then it's like, well, Tychus doesn't need to play it indefinitely. He just wins in 10 minutes.
What
But,
if
you know, so
mutators?
yeah, I guess that's
Yeah.
true. Anyways, Swan, yeah, I mean, the gas upgrade isn't going to help at all, really. Tychus doesn't tend to be gas starved for his upgrades or anything. Those are all like the balance of mineral cost versus gas cost with Tychus is fine, right?
Did it
You're
say
never
the
gonna.
gas drones again? I didn't see it this time. Did it say the gas drones again?
No, I'm just thinking things. Maybe they said
It
that,
says
but
that bottom line, the last
yeah.
line.
Oh, there you go. Has limited use for Swan's extra Vespine. There you go. Yeah, so that's true. I don't think it's even limited. I'm like, if anything, the only extra stuff you're building is turrets, which cost only
Really?
minerals. So you're going to be gas excess. I don't know. Anyways,
Yeah.
yeah, the tactical jump providing vision is a thing. I guess that's helpful. Laser drill can definitely help with just kind of picking off high priority units that Tychus is fighting. Other than that, I mean, yeah, they're fine. Free repair for Swan. Swan handles, a lot of the defensive stuff better than Tychus does. Double edged, he's fine against with the free repair again. Black Death, he's good against. So, yeah, I think it's probably like a 6.
I gave it a 7 because yes, defense is good, but Swan I find is one of the best low skill commanders to pair with a Tychus when I play Tychus at least, because I'm very aggressive as Tychus. I like pushing, I like attacking things, and whether or not the Swan ally decides to do anything, his laser drill will just keep shooting. So regardless how good or bad your ally is, your Swan ally's laser drill will always keep shooting. And I find that on last week's mutation, Inner Power, I had 2 games as Tychus. The first one was I think a Zeratul ally. I forgot what ally I had. Found it. First game as Tychus, I had an Arcturus ally. He had 127 APM and 14% of the kills. So 27 APM, 14% of the kill, doing a lot of nothing from the sound from what it sounds like. Whereas Swan, 32 APM, 31% kills. Same commander, but much more effective just because the laser drill just keeps shooting no matter how lazy you are as Swan. And that's something that a lot of commanders can say. So baseline, the baseline level of Swan is it's really good. That's why I give it a 7. Just because the laser will just keep shooting no matter what you do or don't do. What do you think, though?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right, moving on. No, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Nova and Tychus go decently well together. Nova's another one where Tychus can kind of just outpace to an extent. But if you're P3, you can just walk to the opposite end of the map as soon as Nova spawns and actually be doing some things while he's clearing on the close end. So there is that. The expensive units, yeah, like they both struggle from a lot of the same stuff, like double edged, missile command to an extent. Nova's okay against it. Tychus is okay against it. So combined, you're probably fine, but it's not great. Black Death, double edged. Yeah, it's a bit
Yeah.
painful. We move unseen. Nova's pretty helpful because you can have your main army with Tychus or Nova herself, and if you have Ravens or Nova, that's all
Yes.
pretty beefy, good detection. So that's good. The top bars like defensive drone is fantastic for
Oh
Tychus.
yeah.
Like as if Lone Wolf wasn't unkillable enough. You throw a defensive drone on Tychus or Sirius or whatever, and he's just there for the rest of his life and never going to die. So, for that reason, they're pretty good. But the problem is things like double edged, things like
Well, that's a drone.
Black Death. Yeah, defensive drone does help with double edge, but that's a lot of money to be spending. Tychus's damage will rip through
So
the
Raven
defensive
healing.
drone's energy pretty quick. Yeah, they're not dead against it. I think it's probably like another 8-ish for me.
For me, you gave him the 8.
Yeah, I think so.
8's really high. You know what? I was originally gonna give it a 7, but sure, I'm gonna give it an 8 as well. For no other reason than this is. I just read the best line in the entire wiki. Look at this. If a nuke doesn't solve the problem, 2 probably will. Ooh, I would change that line, but I wouldn't change any of the words. I would just take the same words, make them like font size 72, give them a red border, and just set it on fire because this line is fire. If a nuke doesn't solve the problem, two probably will. Best line in the entire wiki, hands down. So yeah, 8 out of 10 just for that line. I don't care. Moving on, Han and Horner. What do you think?
Han and Horner. I like the benefits a lot from Han and Horner. I'm like, I don't think that's true of any commander in the whole game, including Han and Horner. But yeah, I think the I don't know. I just don't know where they're getting that from. Wow, Vega can get you like 30 minerals by converting units into resources. That's great. That's so helpful. I don't know. I don't think they're very good together at all, just because Han and Horner's so weak. What does Han and Horner shore up that Tychus can't do? It's
Air
like not
strikers,
really double edged. Yeah, but air strikers are mainly good against like
magnificent.
void rifts. Magnificent. Yeah, I guess. But like the main thing would be void rifts, and it's like, well, Tychus doesn't care about void rifts anyways, so I don't know. I don't think they're super strong together. I'd probably give them like a 4.
I still give him a 5 just because Tychus' baseline is a 5. There's no 4 with Tychus because Tychus on his own is already at a 10 out of 10. So cut that in half. He does half the job. That's 5 already.
Yeah, that's fair.
Even if Hot and Hornets complete 0, Tychus will take care
Oh,
of
you cut
for
out
them.
again.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, even if Hot and Hornets.
He wasn't waiting for my response. He just cut out completely.
I apologize. Anyway, even if Hot and Horror is a complete 0, Tychus will more than make up for what Hot and Horror can't provide. That's why it's a 5. Tychus can carry. Tychus is like a high tide. It lifts all the boats, including Hot and Horner. That's why it's a 5. Not mentioned here is Arcturus. What do you think?
Arcturus and Tychus can do pretty well together because they have bunkers, which is nice, and repair is obviously helpful for everyone, generally speaking. ESOs can help with a lot of like
COVID.
environmental stuff that might, COVID that gets in the way of going out on the map and whatnot. And then Tychus can just defend at home. Arcturus can kind of do a lot of work in the early game until you get to the Odin with things like double edged and whatnot again. So I think they're solid. I don't think they're like the best, but I'd give them like a 7 probably.
Yeah, probably 7. Even stuff like double edged. With double edged, at least you can get bunkers with repair, because the bunkers themselves don't take damage from double edged. The guys inside don't either, so it's like a little cheat right there. And it's kind of a your turn, my turn type of deal. For example, if on double edged, Tychus can't go out a lot, but Arcturus can hold the line until the Odin's ready. On COVID, yeah, bunkers still exist, really good. And intercessors, they can totally heal Tychus. And for environmental mutators, Tychus can choose to stay home if he wants to because Earth Splitters exist. So, yeah, pretty nice. You can do pretty well with both of these commanders. Yeah, also Dead of Night defense, also good defense. Bunker siege tanks, Dead of Night, hold on indefinitely.
Oh yeah, and ESOs can also like just give vision anywhere on the map basically, and then you can just teleport an outlaw there.
There we go.
So
Or the Odin.
definitely some stuff. Or the Odin.
Yeah. If one nuke doesn't solve the problem, try 40. 41. Come on, it was right there. If one nuke doesn't solve the problem, 41 will, right?
Yeah, that's true.
My Donnie. Anyway, Heady Gun, what do you think?
Kerrigan, yeah, the Omega Worms, obviously, just by default, very, very helpful there. Tychus can help shore up Kerrigan's early game weaknesses by having Tychus out, like on Rifts and things like that. Or Rifts to Core Hall, I should say. Void Rifts, obviously, Tychus carries. Kerrigan can do okay against things like Black Death sometimes. You have like the P1 Hydra strategy in theory.
Yes. Also,
which helps Tychus as well.
We move unseen. Omega Worms.
Yeah, we move unseen. Omega Worms are great. Yeah, and Omega Worms in general are just going to be very good. What they said about Vega using Side Projector, like, I don't know.
Nobody cares.
Vega will just kill them on her own, I think. Like, if Vega's there, then Vega's just going to deal with it. So I don't think it actually helps Kerrigan that much, but whatever. I mean, I guess if you're working that hard together, that's fine. I think they're fine. I don't think they're super strong, but like the Omega Worms shouldn't be discounted for sure. I think it's probably like another 7, I think.
I give it an A actually. I like Kerrigan and Tychus together because think of the things that Tychus is weak against: killbots, zerglings, COVID, omega worms. We will seen omega worms. Fatal attraction, immobilization wave destroys everything. Well, most of everything, and then you're left with a few big units which don't pull you quite as frequently as a lot of small units will. So yeah, the only things that I would say they don't cover each other's weaknesses would be missile command and Heroes from the no even Tychus is pretty good against Heroes from the Storm. So yeah, I think it's an 8. Am I crazy? They covered
Well, I think
yeah
that's fair. I'd be closer to an 8 than a 6 for sure.
because like I would say Tychus' biggest weakness is killbots. That's just he just doesn't have a good answer for that, and Kerrigan does. And his second one is we've been seen. Kerrigan does have an answer for that. So yeah, that's an 8 right away. So yeah, moving on. Zagara, what do you think?
Zagara is fine. And like they say, they do have the different design philosophies, I guess. I think that kind of works well together in some ways. The the Zerg will get to the target first and leave only the scraps for Tychus is kind of hilarious. I think it's probably the opposite, as it is with almost everyone with Tychus. Like, Tychus just walks around the map and kills everything. I don't know. And even if the Zerg do get there first, well, now I'm medevac platform and I'm ahead of you anyways. So thanks for giving me vision. I don't know, but it's not a race. It's not a race, guys. This is a co-op game. The Rattlesnake can provide help for Zagara's, Zerglings, Aberrations, Corruptors with Revitalizers and Mobius Aggression blend, I guess. Like getting the Revitalizer down and having the Zerglings actually stay in it doesn't seem that likely, but I guess that's the thing. I think it's probably like a trying to think if there's anything in particular that she helps with.
What?
Overseers or something for detection, so that helps somewhat.
Robots.
The yeah, killbots obviously she just carries. The missile command she doesn't do much with. The double edged she's fine against a lot of the time as long as there's not too many additional mutators on top of it because Zagar herself does pretty well against it as long as you're careful with your baneling spawns. And then banelings as well don't care about double edged at all, so she does well there. Black Death, yikes, is not good
Yikes.
for either really. I'd give him like
Well,
a 6, I think.
I'm leaning closer to a 7 because I don't think Zagara is as weak against COVID as one might think because she doesn't have to send all her bailings all at the same time. She can do the box select and then send waves and waves at a time. That tends to work well for me. What mutator they're both weak against is probably the We Move Unseen and Missile Command. Zagara is weaker against environmental mutators, but Tychus is there to carry. On certain mutators, Zagara can even go second prestige and just snipe the Void Rifts, snipe the shuttles if Tychus can't reach them. So there's a bit of synergy there. So I'm leaning more toward a 7 than a 6 because, yeah, on certain mutators, Tychus can just defend against really hard stuff like Heroes from the Storm, and Zagara can just fly around with Scourge and snipe the shuttles. So you already know where I'm going. You already know where I'm going with this. That's a pretty good synergy for next week's mutation. So I give it at least a 7 just because of that. Am I crazy? Maybe a
No, I
little
think
bit,
that's fair.
right? All right, moving on. Abathur, what do you think?
Let's see. Abathur, Tychus can kind of steal your early game kills sometimes, so it makes it harder to farm a lot of biomass early. So that's sort of an anti synergy to an extent. But he's also killing so much stuff that you still probably end up with more biomass by that point in the
Overall,
game. So it's probably fine. The toxic nests can be pretty handy. You can lure with Tychus very effectively. Like if you're working together on the like if the Tychus is on board with luring, then you know you're never going to lose Tychus while you're luring stuff. So that's good. The rest of it, yeah, the Brutalist Deep Tunnel is good. Abathur has answers to things like Black Death with like P1 and whatnot, so that's helpful. Uh, and double edged.
Double edged.
Yeah. So it's okay. I think they're probably another like 6.
Yeah, I'll also lean towards 6. The thing here is, if you're good enough as an Abathur player at luring enemies, you can probably get 2 Brutalisks before Tychus comes out. If you know the map well enough, for example, Missed Opportunities, Rifts to Core Hall, you can probably get 2 Brutalisks out before Tychus disrupts any of your luring, provided it's not against Terran. If it's against Terran, you're just kind of screwed either way. Because, well, no, not screwed. Tychus will help because he breaks open the cans, or the bunkers in this case, and gets you the biomass, or what little biomass is in there. So yeah, 6 sounds about right. Mutator wise, you already covered it. Black Death, Abathur as an answer. We move in scene. You can somewhat get Overseers. That'll work. And other stuff, if you're worried about your health as Tychus, call for Viper backup so that enemies can't even hit you, and you're good. And yeah, Ultimate Evolution is great at pushing alongside Tychus or in other directions as Tychus. And in the late game, if you have Toxic Nests camping, well, that's less of a need to have your Outlaw split up, or you can just have Nux and Vega clean up the air units after the Toxic Nests get rid of the ground units. So yeah, 6, maybe closer to a 7 than a 6, but thereabouts. Stukov, what do you think?
Stukov is fine. Tychus can kind of help shore up any issues in the early game. Not that Stukov generally has that many, if I'm being real, but he can have a little bit of wind up time with P3. Tychus can kind of carry that, and realistically, probably the rest of the game as well. Because
Yes.
the infested Terrans are pretty slow at getting around the map, but in theory, if you need them, they're there.
They're there.
Obviously, once you get into the later stages of the game, double edged, Black Death, all of that, none of it matters to Stukov at all. Missile Command, he's pretty good against as well. So, yeah, I think they do pretty well together. I'd probably give them probably a 7, high 7.
7 as well for me. Tychus' weakness again. What is Tychus weak against? Kill bots. Ooh, that's Stukov's number. What is Tychus weak against? We move unseen. Oh ho ho! Ocular symbiote. You don't even need overseers here. Just hit Tychus outlaws with some queen energy, and they got detection on their own. What is Tychus weak against? Missile command. Well, bunkers got you. So yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, why not 8? You know
Yeah,
what? I
I
changed
said
it.
high 7.
I change my mind. Let's move up. I'll move my own Stukov ring up to an 8. 7's fine, but I'm leaning closer to 8. Moving on, Dehaka. What do you think?
Dahaka likes the early game of Tychus even better than Abathur does because there is no such thing as more biomass or more essence from little exploding nests or anything like that. So
Yeah.
Tychus just helps Dahaka power up even faster in the early game, and then they are both just monsters in the later game. So between the two of them, you're going to be able to kill just about anything. Like another, Heroes from the Storm pairing, like probably essentially the best pairing for the entire memorable boss this upcoming week is just Dahaka Tychus, like just absolutely annihilate everything. So very good together for sure. Beyond that, direct synergies. I mean, yeah, it's just they're both super strong, right? That's like the
They're both super
synergy.
strong.
Dahaka getting more essence is good. So I'd say like an 8.
E- e- mm.
Mm.
I'm worried about not double edge. I'm worried about missile command because as bad as Tychus is, Dehaka's even worse. But that's about it, right? Oh, we move
Yeah.
unseen. Oh, we move unseen. Dehaka's early game is my Donnie. Huh? Maybe I'm tempted to kick it down to 7 because neither of them are that good against killbots. Neither of them are good against we move unseen. Neither of them are good against miss. Yeah, I think
Yeah, but
closer
if
to
you go we move unseen, if Tychus, say you don't know you're getting it right, like you're playing whatever brutal plus random queue, uh, Tychus just rushes out Nux or Vega with detection ASAP and moves them around with Dahaka as soon as 3 minutes into the game. you don't really care anymore about we move unseen,
I
because then
guess.
Dahaka has greater primal worms in the later game and everything. Like,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
even though Stuka or even though Nux and Vega aren't as strong as other early game options, or even if you just went serious, right? Like
I would have said that.
with Dahaka there, you're still going to be able to just annihilate everything. So
That's true. All right, I guess I guess seven's fine. They're both really really strong. Stat boy, what do you think? Yeah, totally. I agree.
Stetman is also pretty darn good. Super Gary for detection is great. You've got Hydralisk and whatnot for like missile command do a good enough job, especially with Green Zone and Repair as a Zerg. Oh my goodness. So that's all really good. The
I remembered what I was gonna say.
oh, okay, go ahead.
Sorry, probably really badly timed now. But you said Dehaka and Tychus are both monsters. Minor correction: only Dehaka is monsters. Tychus is devils. Hey, totally worth it.
That's true. That's true. Monsters and devils. Well, even better. But yeah, Stepman and him go really well together. The healing from the green zones and whatnot, the detection from Step Boy himself, all really good. So yeah, I'd say they're probably like probably. I'm trying to think if anything they struggle against. Double Edge can be a little painful because of Gary, but you can also just not use
Investors.
Egorbs, and you can use Infestors, and yeah, Black Death. You don't care about Void Rifts. You're going to do great against. We move unseen, like I said, shouldn't have any real issues.
Yes.
I think they're potentially the best synergy out of the group here. I'd say like an 8, maybe 9ish almost. Like they're very good together. I don't think they have much they're going to struggle against.
Yeah, I'm thinking along the same lines. I'm trying to think of reasons why they wouldn't be a 9. I don't remember if I've ever given a 9 out of 10 on these synergies, but they're close just because they're both so strong individually. And there's very little. Maybe killbots? No, Statboy can totally handle killbots.
Yep, with Lings. That's the thing, is it's like they're both super strong individually, and they're both strong in ways that really handle any
Statboy is
possible
even.
weaknesses that I can think of for the other.
If you thought Statboy was strong, if you thought Tychus was strong against heroes, Zerglings just absorb anything that the heroes throw at them. My Donnie. Yeah, I'm gonna give him a 9 because Zerglings. My Donnie. All right, there we go. 9 out of 10. So I don't know if do we want to do this one development in co-op. The
Uh,
bigger the button will trigger the nuke. Reference to Tychus level 20. I didn't play Heroes of the Storm. Did you?
I played it very little. I don't think I ever even played Tychus on it. But I guess yeah, he had a big nuke for his ultimate ability there. But yeah, the flashy red button was the barrage. Well,
Barrage.
button with what's this little button with a skull on it? Is the the line in the campaign mission where he does it. So
That's true. All right, so I guess that's it. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have Subsorin to comment on this little section here. You're right. He would have been the perfect guy to talk about. Anyway, so that's gonna do it for this wiki review. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. If you have an idea for it, also please leave it in a comment. Also, Subsorin, if you ever watch these videos, the comment down below what you think about the development section. I'll see you guys next time.